Hi folks, it's Paul from Modcon here. I hope this finds you all well. I have to start with an apology as there are no sections of the build process included in this video, and that's due to a technical fault that occurred when I was uploading the video recordings and photos from my camera onto PC. All the files of recorded work became corrupted during the upload and were all lost, so not the best outcome. I tried to retrieve them over the last few days but without success, so plan B is to give you a walkthrough using the instruction manual interspersed with some new photos, and at the end you'll see some images of the completed model. I'm really sorry that I have nothing more to offer, but I hope you'll like the end result. So on the screen now is the box top for the kit, which was, I believe, one of 3 releases by Wingnut Wings of this fighter. As usual, I always look for an alternative colour scheme, and I quite like the one noted on Lifelike Decal Sheet Part 2, shown here at the bottom. These decals are made by Microscale and look really good. There are 4 colourful alternatives offered, but be aware that the national markings are not included in the pack. I had to raid the spares box for alternatives to augment those supplied in the kit. My chosen scheme was the aircraft of Lieutenant Friedrich Vollbracht of Royal Prussian Jasta 5, which may have been stationed at Boistrancourt airfield in France during 1917-1918. All markings appear to have good register, and although I was only looking for 2 from the set, the others may prove useful in the future. And here is a look at the remaining items in the pack. All of them would make a good model that little bit better, and the colour scheme with the rather heraldic personal marking, that is option 1, would also have been a good alternative for me with its yellow cowling and upper surface of the top wing, with the exception of the ailerons, which remained in their lozenge pattern. And just to keep the record straight, I notice this second page has been created by Cartograph. So both those companies, Cartograph and Microscale, have contributed to the contents. Next up, the beginning of the walkthrough using the instruction manual. As is customary, there are alternative pieces for the various versions offered by Wingnut Wings, and some of these will not be used in this build. They are the items on the parts list marked in blue. They include differing pieces for radiators, wheel hubs, engine pieces and cowling covers, some of the latter requiring the removal of louvers for a given type, depending on your choice of subject. And also a couple of pages showing the decals included. So moving on, we come to the cockpit area, which crams quite a lot into a small space and includes the pilot seat, the control column, the rear partition and the fuel tank. In particular, however, I would draw your attention to the ammunition and spent cartridge boxes. Both are comprised of 2 parts, front and rear, and have small cutouts on their sides. These will cause a lot of issues if you don't ensure the tabs on the cockpit framing onto which these items are glued are not tested as a dry run and tested again. I found their fit to be extremely neat, and in hindsight they caused a few issues that I could have avoided with a little more diligence. They must fit like a hand in the glove, otherwise any slight deviation from this causes the fuselage sides to sit slightly further apart, creating a noticeable join line on the upper fuselage, and inhibits smaller pieces such as the instrument panel and machine gun mounts to be positioned properly within this area. And I'm highlighting here with the tweezers the exact area that I'm referring to. I would suggest, if you can, to slightly widen these, as the tabs on the frames are a bit chunky and the frames are very delicate. So take time to ensure the fit is really good. And talking of the frames, they are next in the manual. The instructions show that a small support spar at the front of both frames requires to be removed. There are also additional items such as a hand pump, throttles and a spark advance lever, not to mention the compass, to be added in at this stage. And here on the frames, as indicated by the tweezers, are the two tabs for the ammunition boxes. So you can imagine when everything's in place, it is quite a cramped space. You may also like to consider adding the compass onto its location tab prior to drawing the frames together, as otherwise it may be awkward to do so once everything else is in situ. So on the lower portion of this page, the areas highlighted in blue are the completed sections, and they comprise the pilot's seat, the cockpit floor and the ammunition boxes, fuel tank and other areas mentioned previously. Just pointing out here the various attachment points for the smaller items as well. So when completed, we can move on to the next section, which is attaching small items onto the instrument panel along with the accompanying transfers. When this is done, the panel itself sits in front of the ammunition box, but in addition, the machine gun mounts sit in front of the instrument panel. I hope you're getting the idea that there's not a lot of space. The mounts are again specific to the version you may choose to make. Seat belts are also included as PE parts and are easy enough to paint up and attach. Please also take care to insert the 3 or 4 curved frame attachments shown here, depending on whether or not you choose to add in additional altimeter. I missed these frames and had to add them in a good way down the line. Certainly doable, but not recommended. And on the following page there are some really impressive images of a restored Fokker D.VII, and I'm sure the detail in these images will help many modelers to better understand the positions of the various items and indeed their colours. And in this last section regarding the cockpit area, a coloured diagram with the appropriate callouts for these parts. It's always a good idea to look through the instructions prior to beginning work, as I find these diagrams very helpful, albeit they are tucked away in the middle of the manual, and also a photo of some of these details as seen installed in my kit. So, if you're ever looking for model filler when you don't have any to hand, you could try this. A few small pieces of scrap plastic in a small amount of liquid cement left in a sealed glass container overnight. Do not use a plastic container. The adhesive melts the plastic and it can then be smeared over a join, left to dry and sanded smooth as normal. Too thin, add some more plastic. Too thick, a little more adhesive, and practice on an old kit first. It worked well for me on the upper fuselage join in this build. Now onto the forward area of the fuselage and the frames and engine mounts. Presuming you've made a better job of the cockpit than I did, everything should be looking like this. There are now some support frames to be added in, and these are marked in blue here. This is also another reason why you should take care with the alignment of the frames and pieces up to this point, as the support struts link into the forward frame and give strength to this area. If things aren't aligned well, this could throw everything out of kilter. Following on, the next stage is the construction of the engine, a Daimler Mercedes 3A, and the instructions provide ample clarity as to where everything should go. I found no issues at all with putting this together, and it really builds up into a nice representation of the engine. All colour callouts are clearly marked. As you might expect, this can be a focal point of the model if you choose to leave some or all of the cowling covers off to show the detail. I decided to leave the forward left cover off for this reason, and this has been a constant feature in my builds of Wingnut Wings kits. We have now reached the stage of drawing the fuselage halves together, and indeed, as I have been mentioning throughout, there is a clear marker on the page to encourage the modeller to ensure everything in the interior is correctly installed. Moving down to the lower portion of the page, there is the insertion of a strip of plastic, part B3, which replicates the stitching on the fuselage underside. I thought Wingnut Wings had made a good job of this, and the piece fits snugly into place. And there is also a choice of radiator to be made, depending on the aircraft you are building, along with the chin cowling cover and a further under-engine panel to complete this stage. And coming up shortly, you will see the engine as it was installed into my model, with the side cowling panel left off, which affords the viewer the opportunity to see the detail of this piece. And here is the image coming up here. You can also see the stems of the cabane struts where they fit into the framework, both round about the engine and the frame at the lower edge of the fuselage. The upper fuselage coaming is the next item, of which there are two pieces, the normal production panel and a very early production panel. The filler caps for the fuel tanks should protrude through the openings on the top of these pieces, and care should be taken while fitting the part, as the ammunition feed from the ammo box needs to be slotted in first before bringing the forward part of the coaming down over the filler caps. The machine guns are also brought into play here, and you can choose the easier plastic option, these offerings having good detail, or you can use the PE parts for a more detailed finish to the guns. The empty belt chutes and an optional gun sight, along with a choice of windscreen, are also covered here. The kit provides various cowling covers, some of which require a little modification, and I had to strip two louvers off the panels I used, as you see here. The exhaust outlets follow on next, and depending on which one you use, this will also determine what cowling panels are appropriate for your model and what alterations may be required. Progressing onwards, another milestone is reached, with work starting on the wings. With the lower wing, there are inbuilt supports, and a suggestion that these should be painted, although I omitted to do so as they would not be seen once construction was finished. Both upper and lower wing parts go together well and posed no problems. The undercarriage axle wing comes next, and again no issues were encountered with these parts. You should be aware, however, that the struts are very neat fitting and may need a little pressure to get them fully inserted. This is also one of the few areas with any rigging on this model, and I chose to use gas patch turnbuckles for this task, along with some elasticated thread. Now to the tailplane and wing struts. The former are well produced and the elevators are wafer thin. A little bit of rigging should be attached to the actuator horns on the control surfaces from the fuselage. This can be fiddly but shouldn't be overly difficult. Cabane struts will give good strength in supporting the upper wing, but again the tabs to slot into location points are very tight, so proceed with care. I found the interplane struts fitted well with no major issues. So now a few photos of my completed model, and that's us really coming to the end of this video. Thanks very much guys for following along. I'm really annoyed that I couldn't bring you a better video, but that was a technical issue that I wasn't aware of at the time until it was too late. Nonetheless, I hope you like what you see, and I hope to be back with you in due course. I won't be making any kits for the next fortnight because I need to wait for parts to arrive, hopefully soon. So until then, take care, look after yourselves, and thank you for looking in. Cheers, bye.